Oh, it's a good one right here. How much acai is needed to be a world champ? Alrighty, coach. So, this question here is for the small people. What are some good concepts for smaller people to focus on in Jiu-Jitsu?
Man, Jiu-Jitsu was made for smaller people. And the one thing I can speak on is that Coach wasn't a giant his whole life, so my perspective it was never that of somebody gigantic. I always wanted to use technique and movement, and most importantly, leverage. And the thing that a smaller person needs to learn to do is lever their body and understand that the best tools are the shorter leverage tools. The understanding is that the shorter length, the strength of it, it makes it so much better. And one technique that I've always been fascinated by, and I love doing, and I love teaching, but always I'll never be as good at, but as someone who's 5'6" or shorter, is sitting up on a technique. Sitting up on someone, especially in a standing position, even when they're trying to pass your guard, is so easy. And you can see that someone bigger, they have to step up and, sit up in segments, as opposed to a smaller person stands up in one motion. They're just a tiny kind of just movement into it, and their body is set, and they have great posture and leverage behind it. As opposed to when I need to step up, when I need to stand up, I have to step up, build the position in order to get my hips up, then my posture comes in behind it, and then I have the position. As opposed to someone smaller where it's just a single movement and their entire body is right behind it. So definitely tap into your body's shorter lever point.
Where's your favorite date night restaurants?
Man, there are so many great restaurants. Coach loves to eat. But specifically date night, one choice, Vespaio down in South Congress. It's this amazing Italian restaurant that they do it right. And it's not one of these like, even nicer Italian restaurants where it's all just based around whatever pasta, noodle thing and some breadsticks and how many you may get. No, the food is incredible. I mean, just from, just everything. Every single thing on the menu I've ever had is amazing, and it's so good. Look it up, Vespaio.
Jiu-Jitsu can take a toll on your body. This is a question for, the people that are getting older and still doing Jiu-Jitsu. The question is, what preventative things can an older grappler do to help ward off injuries?
So that's an amazing question, because that's like a day in my every single life, is that. So they said for an older grappler, so I'll gear this towards them, but this should be done for everyone. But it's not only should there be equal time on recovery and things in direct recovery, but it's actually disproportionate. If you're training 1 hour, 90 minutes, 2 hours one day, the next day should have probably 2 therapeutic things in there. And it doesn't have to all be very costly, this or that, or these types of things. But it can be just a few minutes of stretching, getting a good foam roller, a croquet ball, whatever it is, and doing that as a secondary thing.
Yeah, so this one's a little weird. This one is asked if, can you adopt me?
Is it from you?
No, not for me.
No.
And why are you so awesome? That's another one.
I don't know. But it does remind me of the greatest Michael Scott quote there is. Why are you the way you are?
Why are you the way that you are? Honestly, every time I try to do something fun or exciting, you make it not that way. I hate so much about the things that you choose to be.
If you could be any submission hold, what type of submission hold would you be and why?
I think I would choose to be a human being instead of a submission hold.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my answer. I'm gonna go with that.
Alrighty, Coach. So what advice would you give a new blue belt, and what would they need to focus on?
Don't quit. Seriously, the advice I would give to a new blue belt or anyone in the blue belt stage is don't be afraid to specialize in what you do well or what's going well for you, what you're learning at that time. I think we all get into a place where obviously never should be comparing us to someone else, but we start seeing how good we can be at jiu-jitsu, that we want to be good at everything or good in so many different areas, and so we are absorbing and watching and learning and trying to take a bunch of different things all at once, as opposed to just specializing for a time. It's okay to do one technique set in concept for 3 months straight and really try to get yourself masterful at it. I don't know if masterful is the right word, but get yourself really proficient in it to know how to use it, know some of the ins and outs of it, and as a fallback to get to that the positions that you really need to, whether it's sweeps or submissions. Go ahead and go for it and specialize. It's okay, especially if it feels like you're only doing 2 things, 3 things for a year. That's all right. That's an okay thing to do, and I actually would encourage it to help you really find some growth as a leaping point from there.
If you had to choose, would you relocate to a larger facility or open a second location if you reached critical mass on members? And by the way, they say that they do love this current location, but just thought they'd hear your side.
Yeah, absolutely. So, man, that's a tough one because that's a both for sure. Thank you first of all for loving the academy and the layout and all that stuff. That means a lot. Obviously, a lot of work on it. I will say that in the next 6 months or so, we should have a series of announcements in relations to both parts of your question, in expansion and in second location. That stuff has been in the works for some time, and nothing I can really kind of give too much on, but both parts are in the works, and I hope in the next, 6 months or so, I'll have an announcement for you on both.
Someone mentions that they do struggle with understanding if there's a framework under which he can tell how they're progressing in martial arts skill, and what should they be working towards on and off to move forward?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And so much of the martial arts that we do here is built on a sliding scale, and it makes it so tough and near impossible to kind of measure yourself.
Yes, sir.
And I mean, just the basic progression is you start training, you start doing, getting regimented in your time in, getting better, improving, conditioning better towards it. But at the same time, all your training partners, because you're doing that, you're helping yourself. You're by factor of just like working with them, helping them get better. So the slide is constantly moving. So as you're getting better, so are they. And especially if it's in a certain area, it might seem like they're getting way better than you, but that's not a whole platform foundational thing. So it's not fully accurate, but they are progressing as well. Yeah. And so it's much tougher. And the thing that I always try to tell all my students at any level is don't look for the markers. And obviously we all know, we don't have to get into it, comparing yourself to others and how bad that can be and how sideways that can really turn. But the thing that I tell all my students that really helps and to get the understanding is that you have to measure yourself with how much you are getting into the process. And how much of that process are you really making a part of what you're doing and how you're approaching it. Of course, if you're part of a good academy, you're going to get better. You're going to develop. You got good training partners, you're going to get better. You're going to grow. And that stuff is going to happen through just a solid to great training environment. Now, if you're not at the solid mark, whole different issue in there. But if you have yourself a at least good academy, and anywhere above that is fantastic, you're going to get better. But how you continue to get better is how much you involve yourself in your process. Are you taking notes? Are you notating to yourself how much longer you're able to stay in kind of an intense mode of rolling for a certain amount of time? Are you noticing how much you were unable to do that months ago, years ago, and all that stuff is changing? So really falling in love with the process, trusting the process, to grow, to develop, to learn. Am I doing all the little things off the mat, all the things on the mat? Am I holding myself accountable? Am I in the right mindset? Am I only choosing to roll with certain people because I know it'll have a favorable outcome versus the people that are tougher? Am I rolling with the people that are tougher and then only judging myself by that metric and thinking that that's who I am and what I am and trying to rank myself? None of that stuff matters. What really needs to be is that put yourself in the process. In the process is where it's at, of how you're getting better through that, and that will be the better measure.
All right, Professor, so another good question we have here is, what routine did you go through that helped you fine-tune your skill sets in Muay Thai?
Man, love that question. That's a great one. Muay Thai is about efficiency through the power of the technique. And so its training should go according. And so the top 3 things I can tell you for anyone to improve in Muay Thai immediately are, in no such order, but is to jump rope, to shadow box a lot, and to condition your arms and shoulders. Those 3 things, although they're not technical aspects, they can be very technical. Everybody should be shadow boxing. It is so important to do. So we're talking about, if you're whatever range of maybe combat martial arts you're doing, Muay Thai, MMA, combination boxing, it should mirror that. I'm fighting 5 rounds, then you should be looking to do 12 to 15 rounds of shadow boxing. I mean, if you hear that more than twice, sometimes closer to 3 times, and the shadow boxing should be very much focused on not just simply your offensive skill set and what you're strong at, but all types of movements. So those type of things. Never doing the shadow boxing where it's just you put in your mind's eye that it's a one hit. I come in, I sting the person, and I'm in and out, and it's all said and done. That doesn't help anyone. That's not really shadow boxing. That's just kind of warming up. It should be very much mapping out the fight, feeling the fight. I would encourage someone maybe to do part of it not in front of a mirror, and other times in front of a mirror or recording yourself. Just so there's a little bit of watching, a little bit of reception to it, and man, were my feet at the good width? Are my hands kind of much lower than I think they are? Am I really snapping my punches? All those types of things.
Yes, sir.
And then the last part is pretty straightforward. Kind of goes back to the jump rope, but conditioning your arms and shoulders so that your hands are up all the time, and that there isn't this lag of your hands coming down very easily, especially at the first few walls of fatigue, because it all comes through in waves and layers.
Who is one boxer from any point in time you'd pick to fight and beat the great Floyd Mayweather?
Love the boxing question, love boxing. Boxing is my first love, but I think my choice would be Sugar Ray Leonard, because the people that Floyd has always struggled with are people who are also technically really good, who have very sharp technique, who have the ability to punch, be a boxer puncher, that combination, that's a lethal combination in boxing, and who have dynamic hand speed. So Floyd's been caught a couple different times, Zab Judah, Sugar Shane Mosley, those guys have caught him with their hand speed and didn't have the technique to follow up. Ray Leonard, for all the things he is and was, never really became, and all this kind of stuff, yeah, of course he became an amazing champion of all time, but what he was tough as hell, amazing hand speed, amazing technique and footwork, and the man could punch and put it on you. And even though at times he fought towards just to winning and sometimes boring some matches up, he really, I think, had the best opportunity to beat Floyd.
Okay, so how about you tell us about your first Jiu-Jitsu competition? When and where did that happen?
Man, my first Jiu-Jitsu competition was, I want to say, October or November of 2002. Definitely the Carlos Machado Winter Wars Jiu-Jitsu tournament in Dallas. I've been training about 3 years to that point. And it wasn't that I didn't want to compete. In fact, I really desperately wanted to compete, but it was the frequency of competitions. They actually would only happen once a year, once every other year. There was a scarcity of competitions, very different than the way it is now. So you would really not get as many opportunities as you wanted. Also the preparation, knowing how to compete, all that stuff, the guidance, information wasn't as readily available. There weren't as many people to go to, and the Texas scene, you have to remember, was so scarce. Like, to find a blue belt at a certain academy was near finding a 3rd, 4th degree black belt somewhere to teach. And so that type of stuff was just part of the normal of what it was like, and it was typically not as many people involved and not as much opportunity out there. So really thankful for the times now. But yeah, my first competition, so I was no-gi only. So they had, I think I went no-gi instead of gi because I was practicing. I was doing lots of wrestling at that time. I had a wrestling and takedown coach, and I was working with him. And so I decided to do, went to do that. Won my first 2 matches by submission. Let's say Americana and arm triangle choke. And then my 3rd match was actually against one of my training partners. And in that wrestling takedown class, he was a pretty really good wrestler, heavyweight as well, and had a more extensive background. But we were really close in it. It all went well up until my cheap mouth guard turned on me, and I was having issues with it for a long time. So I'm a huge proponent of getting the ones custom and all that great stuff. I'm living proof of that. My mouthpiece literally got turned in kind of sideways in my mouth. Kind of started choking on it. He did finally pass my guard in that one, and I got stuck in kind of a head and arm position. But he wasn't choking me. It was just a case of got stuck in it, that my mouthpiece was bothering me. Of course, I didn't know how to condition for it, all the adrenaline, all that kind of stuff. So I ended up tapping out to my mouthpiece being turned sideways in my mouth and losing that way. So got silver at it, but lost in not the most heroic way that there was. But man, did I learn a lesson that I've forever about preparation and readiness and knowing your gear and all this kind of stuff. And so it was an awesome experience. But I want to say like November 2002 was my first competition. Hey everyone, I hope you all enjoyed that video as much as we did making that video. It was a ton of fun. We're gonna have to release that blooper reel one day. But thank you all so much for submitting your questions, watching this entire video, and hopefully we can do more of this in the future with maybe even some different staff members. So again, thank you so much, and hope you guys enjoy it.